big buck nigger with the sea boots on. And there's a lot of other verses in the version that's in here that are coming straight out of that repertoire. Now,
who's singing that? Is it? I mean, who's singing the lyrics? Is
okay,
it black man or
that's exactly the first point I make. Is it's being sung by a black man to other black crew members, and that word has none of that baggage that we are sensitive to. It's just like rap today. It's like the way the word is being used, black to black, in our current culture. So that's the first thing that I would say about it. But I would also say that there's elements to the way it's presented that may be coming out of the minstrel tradition. And one of the fascinating things about that is that so much of that minstrel music was being written by white men who were writing it in a very demeaning way about that population. So who wrote Camptown Ladies?
Stephen Foster.
Stephen Foster sold, I think, what was he sold one of his first songs to one of the major minstrel bands of the day. And a couple of years later, bought it back. And he wrote them a letter saying, "You are not singing this song in the manner that I intended it." He wrote in a very different way about that black population. But the minstrel band thing was very demeaning on the whole. And those are the lyrics that you end up seeing in a lot of these songs. So if you go through Hugel with any, start to really look through a bunch of these songs that are clearly coming from that, it's pretty, the lyrics are pretty awful. I mean, we could probably do, just look at this, at least in the paperback version. There once was a nigger by the name of, was Uncle Ned, had no yarns on the top of his head. And all of this is written in the dialect, of the day. So, of the minstrel kind of slanted dialect. Anyway, these, it's just the lyrics of this and other versions of songs that show up with those minstrel lyrics are pretty offensive, at least to us. But one presumes, well, in the case of Johnny Come Down to High-Low, I presume it was black man to black man being sung. Actually, in that You're Nothing But a Humbug, the blackbird singing to the crow are coded for black men talking to black men. So you'll find things like that. And that would be interesting to figure out where Reeves Baldwin, if that's what he actually heard these men singing on shore, these black men loading his ship with cargo. They're just making up lyrics to have to give them a rhythm to walk this stuff up onto the ship and to basically enjoy themselves and have a good time. What his understanding of that song was is not something. Carpenter may have written more detail about that. I just don't have those notes. And so for that, we need to go back to Bob Walter and say, what else did Carpenter say about that? So I purposely sing Johnny Come Down to High-Low just to talk about that issue. And also to talk about the fact that at Mystic Seaport and in most of our concerts today, we're simply not going to sing these lyrics as Hugo was presenting them, or as these other collectors. It seemed that even up through 1960, it was fine to put in kind of demeaning racial references, but you had to be careful with sexual references. So you Bowdlerized all of that stuff and changed around enough, except for, we know that Stan Hingle had a collection of songs that he would sing behind closed doors. And it turns out that the Frenchman, Legman, that he was working with, Legman's wife is still alive, and someone has been in touch with her about the manuscript. So at some point, there may be published what were considered to be the other repertoires that we don't tend to sing.
The uncensored version.
That's right. Uncensored workshop that we always put in the church. So, yeah, I tend to go to Johnny Come Down to High-Low, and then, okay, before we take a break here, let's talk about one of the links that I have to give Craig Edwards the credit for putting this one together, but from James Hungerford's The Old Plantation of What I Gathered There on an Autumn Month of 1832 comes, and published in 1859, comes a song that was being sung by slaves rowing a guest around the plantation on the coast of Virginia. And as they were rowing, the plantation owner talks to the head slave that's rowing. Saying, "John, stop singing that miserable, sad thing. Sing that jaunty song you sang when you were husking corn the other day." And even in that little conversation between the two of them, it makes reference to, I think, one of the things that you might find with lowlands. There is a minor key, mournful element to a lot of the black repertoire that, and yet gets converted in Chanteys into an energetic form that is very useful. And I'll get to that in another minute. But in terms of this song that's being sung to row around, the song that they then sing is "Round the Corn Sally," which goes, "Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. Sally lives on the old plantation round the corn, Sally. She's the queen of the wild goose nation round the corn, Sally. 7 years I courted Sally round the corn, Sally. 7 years she would not have me round the corn, Sally. Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. 5 won't catch me, 10 won't hold me round the corn, Sally. At least that's what my Sally told me round the corn, Sally. Sally's got a lovely daughter round the corn, Sally. She's the one that I am after round the corn, Sally. Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. Hooray, hooray, oh, round the corn, Sally. Hooray for the lovely ladies round the corn, Sally. Round the corner we will go, round the corner, Sally. Round Cape Horn in the ice and snow, round the corner, Sally. If I had a little gal in tow, round the corner, Sally. I'd take her off to Callio, round the corner, Sally. Oh, Sally Brown's the girl for me, round the corner, Sally. Standing there by the mango tree, round the corner, Sally. It's around Cape Horn to Callio, round the corner, Sally. Around Cape Horn we all must go, round the corner, Sally. Oh, Madame Gachet's a cheery soul, round the corner, Sally. So around Cape Stiff we all must go, round the corner, So the connections there just seem to be so clear. And of course, Round the Corner is one of the songs that Dana notes of about the 8 or 10 shanties that he makes reference to in 2 Years Before Christ. And it's a title that shows up kind of regularly. Some of the other titles that he notes disappear. So, you know, from the 1830s on into the 1850s, you know, these sailors would forget some songs and pick up on others. And some of them, of course, would become very, very popular to the extent that, going back to this British tradition, you get Stan Hubel putting, I think, 8 versions of Blow the Man Down in Chanteys from the Seven Seas. One of them with a totally different set of lyrics altogether. So you can tell that some songs would pick up a sense of popularity. But with Round the Corn, into Round the Corner, at least we have one really nice, tight connection. The other thing about Johnny Come Down to Hilo, to go back to that, is that the chorus with the line of the little girl with a blue dress on. And if this is a Deepwater song that's being sung in the 1830s or 40s, you get a line that shows up in the blues a lot later. You're talking about the same population that's carrying this music on from one place to another. And the other link that you do see to begin to talk about the connections between slave songs and steamboating days, there are links between Deepwater stuff and the stuff that the roustabouts are singing, loading cotton onto steamboats and such, and on into line and bar songs. So one of the great connection there for me is I'm sitting by the river on the levee, waiting till the steam will come down. And my cotton bills are loading mighty heavy, miles and miles and miles around. I thought I heard a steamboat when she landed on the levee below. Sitting by the river on the levee, waiting till the steam will come down. Moses stood by the Red Sea shore, some might have water with a 2x4. Who built the ark? Brother Noah. Who built the ark? Brother Noah. Brother Noah built the ark. I'm sitting by the river on the levee, waiting till the sea will come down. The cotton bills are loading mighty heavy, miles and miles and miles around. I thought I heard the steamboat when she landed on the levee below. Sitting by the river on the levee, waiting till the steam will come down. And I don't know, but I've been told, streets in heaven are paved with gold. Who built the ark? Brother Noah.